So, just the other day, Kubo teased the appearance of a character in Core 4 of the Thousand Year Blood War arc anime who did not appear in the manga. Now, I'm fairly sure this isn't a totally new thing. Kubo's been dropping hints like this about the final season of the anime for a while now, and the possibility of brand new characters has been discussed before. But this tease certainly feels like the most explicit to date as we close in on the Calamity's July release. Now, I've seen this quote by Kubo all over the place over the last day or so with multiple different translations and variations, but I want to look at this version by user Ochiha. I think that's how you pronounce it, probably not, but they are someone we've cited on the channel before. According to their translation, Kubo's comment reads as follows. At the moment, for the final season, I only did a very small amount of character design, before then going on to say, this character did not appear in the original work at all. Like I said, I've seen different versions of this comment, where Kubo either talks about working on the final season as a whole, or the final episode specifically, and this user did in fact return to amend the initial quote, saying just to clarify, he used Saishu wa, which means final episode, not final season. Either way, this is very exciting and definitely makes me wonder who could be making an appearance this late in the game, and perhaps more importantly, why? It's unlikely this character is just going to be an extra. To be teased in this way makes me think there'll be a new, named character in their entirety. And in today's video, we're going to make some guesses as to their identity, so let's dive in. Of course, before we get started, do consider hitting subscribe down below if you enjoyed the video today and you want to see more just like this from the channel. It does help out in our journey to 300,000 subs, and I really would appreciate it. And also check out my Patreon as well if you want to take the support for the channel that extra step further. Just like everyone on Patreon is doing right now, everyone whose name is appearing in the credits, they're all helping out, and it does make a massive difference, so thank you all so very much. Of course, there will also be spoilers for the remainder of the Thousand Year Blood War arc in this video to come as well. So, when Kubo says that this character did not appear in the original work at all, does he mean in the Thousand Year Blood War arc or the entirety of the Bleach manga? Personally, I think he's probably talking about the entire Bleach manga, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to be operating on both fronts, and looking at both existing possibilities and potential brand new additions as well, as I think there are at least a few existing characters who could theoretically make an appearance. The other thing to consider is this idea that Kubo was talking specifically about the final episode, as opposed to the final season as a whole. Now again, for the sake of the video, I'd like to look at ideas for both the final season, and more pertinently, who might specifically arrive in the very last episode, seeing as that's apparently what Kubo actually meant, because again they do offer very different possibilities. To begin with then, let's look at some ideas for characters who could appear in the final episode itself, as per Kubo's actual meaning. Look, the idea of a totally new character appearing in the very last episode is definitely intriguing, because, and I don't think I need to spell it out for you, I'm just going to rip the band-aid off right now, if it's related to the series' continuation beyond the Thousand Year Blood War arc. Ergo, if it's to do with the Hell arc, well, I have literally no idea who it could be. There are issues with this on multiple levels, because presumably, the characters who appeared in the Hell chapter count in Kubo's mind as appearing in the original work? Maybe? And even if that's not what Kubo had in mind when giving this quote, all of them have appeared in the original work anyway in some form or another. Xyloporo has obviously appeared in Bleach before, and both Kazui and Ichika, although new characters for the very last chapter of the manga, have appeared in the original work. Plus, since Kazui and Ichika are introduced in the final chapter of Bleach anyway, we know they're going to be appearing in the anime anyway, especially since Kubo confirmed that auditions have been happening for these characters. Even if Kubo is referring to character design in the sense that he's helping to craft how existing characters from the manga will translate and look in the anime, I don't think he'd be referring to Jailer of Hell Xyloporo in this way, because again, he technically appeared already in the original work. To be honest, if it's a totally new character, someone who never appeared in either the manga or the Hell chapter, I'm starting to think that there isn't much chance of it being related to the Hell arc at all, simply because I think Kubo would rather show that himself in the manga first. For example, I don't think we would see, say, a king of hell or something like that, or an envoy, a messenger of hell, or anything like that in the anime, specifically because that would also take us beyond what we've seen already as of the Hell chapter. And speaking of the Hell chapter, it seems very unlikely, to me anyway, that they would reveal, say, Hell Ukitake's look in the anime as opposed to the manga before Kubo himself gets the chance to do it, unless it's explicitly a tease, maybe designed to, yes, set up a continuation of the Hell arc itself. Maybe you see Ukitake's outline or a shadowy glimpse at his mostly obscured face as he drags Xyloporo back through the gate. But other than that, I don't see a future in which new Hell arc characters or designs are actually revealed via the anime. Unless, of course, that just ends up being the route they go down with the Hell arc in general, but I kind of doubt it, by which I mean no manga, and it's only an anime. I do suppose there is one other option. Since chapter 686 takes place in the same general era as the Hell chapter, it makes sense that certain characters we didn't see would already be around. What I mean by that is, even though we didn't see them in chapter 686, the likes of the new 7th Division Vice Captain Atao Rindo, or the 8th Division Vice Captain Yu Yu Yayahara, these characters would have already been around at that time. Even if the Hell chapter isn't animated, I could see the anime, including someone like Atao or Yu Yu, in the episode in which chapter 686 takes place, as a nod to the Hell chapter perhaps, but again, would that really count as not appearing in the original work in Kubo's mind? So any kind of inclusion of or from the Hell arc is definitely a bit messy. Another suggestion I've seen thrown around is the surprise appearance of Soya Azashiro, the 8th Kenpachi, and one of the main characters from the light novel Spirits Are Forever With You. Again, I don't think this is that likely. The only way in which Azashiro would appear is if he shows up in Muken when Aizen is re-imprisoned after the war. And I have a few things to say about this. One, to even see Aizen being re-imprisoned would imply that at least part of the prologue to the other major light novel, Can't Fear Your Own World, is being animated, as that's when we see him get put back in prison. And to be fair, I still stand by my belief that they absolutely should animate the Can't Fear Your Own World prologue, even if they have no intention of doing the whole light novel, purely to add necessary context to the immediate aftermath of the war. 2, it's possible that Azashiro makes an appearance during Aizen's monologue from chapter 686, when he's talking about courage, after he's already been back in prison for, 10 more years, I suppose, at that point, and I guess that could happen. Aizen and Azashiro do have a brief encounter within Muken in the light novel, so maybe this could act as a callback to that. But honestly, the biggest reason for why I don't see Azashiro appearing is just, well, why would he? What would be the point? In terms of the story timeline, the events of Spirits Are Forever With You are long past at this point, and it doesn't seem like there's ever going to be any intention of continuing Azashiro's storyline, so it's not like it would be connecting to anything in particular. And while Azashiro would fit the bill as to not having appeared in the original work, he also feels very niche to me. To the point where I certainly think anime-only viewers wouldn't get anything out of his appearance whatsoever and would only serve to be confused at the very end of the series. Especially if he did appear in the very last episode, even if it was just meant to be a wink and a nod to people who have not only read the manga, but also know of the light novels. It just feels ultimately too small scale to include in the finale of all places. I guess, to cut a long story short, what I mean is it would be cool, yes, but only for really the smallest select group of Bleach fans. You and I, those who are making and watching these videos, the most hardcore essentially, who would have an understanding of the light novels, and while references and small teases like that are great for those dedicated fans, I'm not sure this one makes all that much sense at such an important juncture as the final episode of the 1000 Year Blood War arc, but I could be totally wrong. But of course, the most likely answer, as I said earlier, is that it's a completely new character. Someone who literally never appeared in the manga whatsoever, not just the Thousand Year Blood War arc. Someone whose appearance is notable enough, both to get themselves a spot in the final episode of the series, but also for Kubo himself to tease it as he is doing. Again, as I mentioned earlier, this likely means there'll be an actual named character within the story, rather than, say, when we saw Ukitake's family in episode 29. That was cool to see, but none of them were named, I don't think. None of them really had any kind of real presence. Whereas this is going to be something a little more, I would say, like Nikita Deslok, a member of Yu-Ha Bark's original Schutzstoffel who wasn't in the manga. Now, I have to be honest, while she is probably the best example we've had of a completely new character appearing in the Thousand Year Blood War arc anime to date, while she is cool and a neat addition, I wouldn't really imagine a character of that caliber would be enough to tease in this kind of way. I mean, she doesn't even have a single line of dialogue. So, who could it be? Well, it is a bit of a cop-out, I know, but the truth is that it's very difficult to say, purely because we don't know just how changed up the ending is going to be. It could be completely different from the manga, although I'm not necessarily expecting that. And Kubo's already mentioned that, like I said, Kazuya and Ichika auditions are being held for their voice actors, so if we imagine the final episode of the Thousand Year Blood War arc anime at least includes chapter 686, then I have a couple of ideas, and both of them revolve around Yu-Ha Bark. As I have long lamented, in the manga, the final chapter was when we were finally given some semblance of what Yu-Ha Bark actually wanted to achieve, as with his dying words he explained to Ichigo his desire to create a world that existed without the fear of death. Again, as I've said before, I am optimistic that we will receive a full flashback for Yu-Ha Bark in Cour 4, showing us his earliest days in the Primordial Sea, what led his father Adnias to split the three worlds, and what became of Yu-Ha Bark afterwards. To be honest, I'm hoping it happens earlier than the final episode, but if it doesn't, could the new character be Yu-Ha Bark's mysterious mother? He was shown to have a mother-like figure all the way back in episode 14, something that wasn't even so much as hinted at in the manga, and already gave us way more layers to Yu-Ha Bark's possible family than we ever knew before. Maybe, if we do get a true flashback that shows us the Primordial Sea in the final episode or otherwise, we could actually see Yu-Ha Bark's mother in the flesh as an actual named character. And that leads me to my second option, Adnias himself. This one is a little flimsier for obvious reasons. Adnias did appear in the manga, but you know what I mean. I'm talking seeing the man himself as an actual autonomous living being, not the hollow shell that was the Soul King. And look, the anime teasing us with those faint glimpses of a flashback, giving us the character's name, has already humanized the Soul King way beyond what the manga ever did. This is the next step. Again, whether that would be what Kubo would consider to be someone not appearing in the original work at all or not, I'm unsure, but it could be the case. Then, continuing on from that, continuing down that line of inquiry, there's the possibility that this totally new character is a member of the nobility, one who had something to do with Rayo's sealing, if that's the route again the anime decides to go down. As I've said before, the Thousand Year Blood War arc anime seems to be handling the Soul King's story in a different way to the light novel. So maybe, in the anime's version, the nobility weren't involved at all. But if they were, a flashback for Rayo is where we'll likely see them, and I wouldn't put it past Kubo to have designed and named all of the ancient original founders of those noble clans, much in the same way that he designed and named the original Gotei 13 for their appearance in episode 7. The only difference is that the original Gotei 13, they technically already appeared in the manga, albeit barely. So unlike Nikita Deslok, they aren't completely new anime-exclusive creations, although they're very close. Okay, but moving on from the final episode, If we instead look to the final season as a whole, are there any potentially brand new characters we could see? Or characters who simply didn't appear in the Thousand Year Blood War arc? Well, yes, there are some. Look, I'm just going to say it. Where the hell is Tessai? Tessai has been missing in action since the end of the Lost Agent arc, and it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I would love to see the former Kido Corps commander getting involved in the very final battle. I can understand him staying behind to act as the last line of defense for Karakura Town or something like that, although he didn't show up to try and fight Aizen, so I don't know what that's all about. But by the time of the Varvelt battle, all eyes are on that showdown. The fighting is entirely localized there. And if the heroes lose there, then the entire Bleach universe goes down with them. Karakura Town, at that point, is nothing more than a blip on the radar. The main issue, though, with bringing Tessai in at this very late stage is, well, why is he only arriving now, and who does he arrive with? There's no denying it definitely feels like he's missed his mark. Kisuke has been involved with the war from the very beginning, while Yoruichi joins in during the second invasion. Isshin and Ryuken have also just arrived in Varvelt, so Tessai is now really the only person of any real notable strength left in Karakura Town, of any real consequence either. Sorry, Don Kanoji. It does kind of feel like the anime is also going to leave Tessai hanging too, unless things get really wild. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I'm still hanging on to this vague idea of Yhwach creating Soldat from the Soul King's power, as we saw randomly in Core 3, that seemed to lead absolutely nowhere, but I would be very surprised if it was just to fight the Bambis and lose immediately. I mean, I guess it could be. But what if he actually invades the living world as part of a final push to win the war? A battle on all fronts, as it were. Thus, leaving Karakura Town to fend for itself against these alien Soldat beings. Maybe he's hoping he can draw the attention of some of the Gotei 13 when characters like Ichigo might realize, oh, my hometown is under serious threat. Tessai, Ururu, Jinta, hell, even Ichigo's friends. Let's get Tatsuki, Keigo, Mizuiro involved again. The likes of Ikumi. Why not throw in Shishigiwara and even a powerless Jackie too? I'm sure she can still fight. And everyone could come together to take up arms in a last-ditch battle, with the Urahara shop acting as headquarters. Yeah, that's probably not going to happen, but it would be a cool way to get everyone involved. Alright, I've kept you waiting long enough. Next up, probably the character people expect to see discussed the most in regards to this topic is Tokinada Sune Yashiro, the villain of the light novel Can't Fear Your Own World, who breaks into Oetsu's palace during the Vandenreich's second invasion to steal the Hollow Zanpakuto Ikomikidomoe, which kicks off the events of the light novel in the aftermath of the Thousand Year Blood War arc. Now, I'm not going to say I don't think there's any chance of Tokinada appearing. He certainly is not going to appear in the final episode after the 10-year time skip, as he's long dead by that point. But I guess if they do plan on animating Can't Fear Your Own World, Tokinada could make an appearance at some point earlier in the season, but the question is where? The Royal Palace has already been transformed into Varvelt, so I'm fairly sure he's already taken the sword at this point, and so I think they've missed their moment. They could tease his arrival, perhaps. However, thinking about it, there is a chance for him to appear in the final episode, but it's contingent entirely on them deciding to animate Can't Fear Your Own World. What I mean is, what if the anime doesn't end with chapter 686, but instead ends with chapter 684 and the Can't Fear Your Own World prologue? Surprise! Can't Fear Your Own World is the next core, which would then culminate in chapter 686. Again, is that likely? Probably not, especially since, as I mentioned earlier, Kubo himself has already said that they are auditioning for Kazui and Ichika, which tells us that actually it looks like the anime will end with chapter 686 after all. If the plan is to do one more core and focus it on Can't Fear Your Own World, With the end of that core being chapter 686, is there any universe in which they've already auditioned, in which they're already auditioning Kazuya and Ichika for that? That doesn't seem too likely to me. Although these guys don't have voice actors at all, whereas the main cast, the new cast of Can't Fear Your Own World do, thanks to Bleach Brave Souls. Bringing us back to reality though, the fact is that it seems like there's just no room for Tokinada or Can't Fear Your Own World, and as I've said before, I'm intrigued to see more of Ryo's story in the anime, to see how it continues to further differentiate itself from the version found in the light novels, as it appears to already be doing. But as we start to wrap this video up, who are some completely new characters that could appear in the remainder of the season before the final episode? Well, I guess there are a few options. Again, like I said, I'm hoping we get a flashback for Yhwach arc earlier than the final episode, so that might be where either his mother or Adnias do actually appear. Aside from that, though, maybe a new Zanpakuto spirit. After all, we're already going to be seeing Benihime herself taking shape during Kisuke's bankai, but to actually meet her somehow would be really cool, if again unlikely. And speaking of Kisuke, I'm expecting to get a flashback for him and Yoruichi as well during their showdown with Askin. Maybe there could be a brand new named character featured there too. Either way, I feel like Tessai would at least have to appear in that, so maybe he will show up in this final season in some form or another. Ultimately, to close out, looking back at Nikita Deslok, as I mentioned earlier, her appearance was cool, but truth be told, she doesn't really add much. And I would have never been able to guess before we first saw her that Yhwach's original army would get another named high-ranking officer, let alone that they would all be the original Schutzstaffel. So it's totally possible that whoever this new character is, they will be equally as difficult to imagine. Alright everyone, but that's it for today's video. As always, I do hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you took something of value away from it as well. Let me know your thoughts on this potentially brand new character down in the comments below. Who do you think it could be? Who would you like it to be? If it's an existing character, who are you expecting it to be? Where and when are you expecting them to show up? The questions are endless, so do let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Alright everyone, once again, thank you so very much for watching. Consider hitting subscribe if you haven't done already, as it does help the channel out enormously, and I do need your support in a big way, so thank you all so very much for that. And if you want to take your support for the channel another step further, then Patreon is absolutely the place to do it. You can support me for as little as $1 a month, and it all goes a very long way to helping keep the lights on here on the channel, just like everyone in the credits is doing, so thank you all again. It really does mean absolutely everything. Alright guys, but until next time, I'll catch you later, and I'll see you then.